does Canada frankly have a future?
Fortunately, the fire is burning the building.
What's the quick take of your sense of where Canada stands in terms of being a competitive tax jurisdiction in this country?
Well, there's lots to unpack there, David, but I think right now, the way I view it, at least anyhow in my head, is we're a rudderless boat. You might as well plunk Canada into a small canoe without any oars,
Wow.
and wherever the wind takes us, it's going to take us. And you're seeing that with this particular government right now, where they're more apt to announce spending announcements or some sort of virtue signaling stuff,
Hmm.
as
Hmm.
opposed to actually dealing head on with some of the economic issues that are really troubling our country, such as, what are we going to do with this trade challenges that we're seeing from the United States? Um, there was a lot of discussion that we're going to have a deal, right after the Kananaskis G7 conference. Well, that didn't
Hmm.
happen. And what are we doing about high taxes? Nothing.
Hmm.
And and then just to end it all off, and there's lots more that I could add to the list, but the big one
Hmm.
in my mind is we don't have a budget. We have lots of
Right.
spending announcements, and we don't have a budget. And to me, that is more than just a shame. That's just a disgrace.
Right. So I think you've got a very apt metaphor here. We've got a lot of choppy waters, a lot of challenges, if you will, and we've got a rudderless boat. So I think that makes a lot of sense if I get your metaphor.
Yeah.
When in fact we need clear direction, we need momentum. We got to get our act together, and I think that's consistent with what we've talked about before. I believe we talked in January. Is that we've got to get our competitive act together as a country. It's almost like we're our own worst enemy. So we're going to dive into that. So I want to just start off with a cornerstone question, and that is, why does tax policy matter?
Wow. Again, very broad-based question, but it hits every one of our pocketbooks. I mean, the Fraser Institute does a great annual study, and they've done it for
Hmm.
years, on how much bite taxes take out of the average Canadian family. The average Canadian family being, um, a married couple or a common law couple with a couple kids, average income of roughly $110,000. I'm sure you know the answer, David, in terms of what the annual percentage is, but they just released their report, their 2024 report, um, about a month or so ago,
Hmm.
and it's 43%. And that's
Wow.
more than just income tax. That's a whole culmination of
Hmm.
other taxes like GST, HST, and things like that. But
Hmm.
that is a huge, huge amount of money that hits the average Canadian person.
Hmm.
And so when you think about it that way, tax policy matters, right? For the average person, because whatever policy is set to ultimately take the bite out of that 43%, well, that hits you directly. And so,
Exactly.
so I think that's just a foundational answer. I could go on and on about,
Hmm.
how it affects corporations and trusts and estate planning and things like that. But I
Hmm.
think on a foundational basis, 43%, that's why it matters.
Yeah. So it really does matter when you think of it. Is that's the number one item then? Tax. That's
It
the
is.
number one item in your personal budget. And so it's not housing, it's not food, it's not gas, it's tax, right? So that plays that's the seminal question then, is tax policy in this country, is it not?
Absolutely. And one of the things I've been on my pulpit about in my writings and speakings is that, improve financial literacy will improve the financial well-being of individuals and a country.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I hate to say it, but and I don't intend for this statement to be, too sharp, but our country is financially illiterate,
Hmm.
on average. If there's not, it's a low, low percentage of Canadians that are financially literate. And there's a high percentage of low information voters.
Hmm.
So if you take that combination of, high financially illiterate and high low information voters, what do you think we're going to get? We're going to get, we're going to get people elected that ultimately feel good,
Hmm.
and as opposed to really trying to elect the right person. And the right
Mm.
person, in my view, is somebody that can steer the ship, and get us out of this rudderless situation. Because if you float all boats, carrying on with my crazy metaphor, if you float all boats upwards, everybody benefits. And
Yeah.
so, in any event, that's a little rant for you.